At this point, you should have the hem on the pocket sewn. You should have the side openings, these little flaps that we did on all four, sewn, and both of the casings sewn, one for the front piece and one for the back piece. We're going to take one of the large pieces and move it out of the way and only keep one of them here with us, because our next step is to pin the pocket to the part of the bag that's now going to become the front. So we need some of our pins, and we need one of the pieces and the pocket. So make sure that when you're doing this, that you have the right side of the pocket of the bag facing up and the right side of the pocket facing up, because this is going on the outside. Remember how we pin, and that is always to start with the two ends first. So make sure that pin's right on that end. And then we're going to pin the other end. And if you cut your pieces accurately, then these two things should be the same size, and we should be able to just kind of flatten this out, and it's together. I want these, I'm going to go to the middle, and I want these two pieces to stack up right on top of each other. Neither one of them should be sticking out farther than the other. So I'm going to put a pin in there, and then let's go halfway between the two and put a pin here, and then we're going to go in the middle again. Remember, it's two ends first, middle, middle, middle. Then on this half, make sure that it's laying flat and that it is right on top of each other. We'll put one here and put one here. And our pin should be perpendicular, or mostly perpendicular. Never put them in parallel to the cut edge, because you're going to have trouble with your presser foot trying to sew over that. Okay. So again, we have about 9 pins on this distance. We're going to turn the bag sideways, and I want this to just kind of smooth flat up the side. And this time we are going to pin from the bottom to the top. So we want our pins about every 2 to 3 fingers apart. You can actually use your fingers to measure. And then put one up near the very top. When you have that side done, flip the whole thing around the other way. And again, we want to smooth this out, making sure that your edges are right, one on top of each other. And put your pins every 2 to 3 fingers apart. We're actually going to just kind of stay stitch this on there. It'll make it easier when we put the whole bag together to not have pins holding the pocket to the bag, pins holding the little loops to the bag, and then holding the front and the back together. So if we can do some pre-stitching to hold things in place, then we can get rid of the pins, and it'll make it a lot easier. Okay, so the next step is sewing this. We are ready to sew the pocket to the bag. The first thing that we need to do is check to make sure that our machine is threaded correctly. So I'm going to stitch 1 inch or so on a scrap, just to check. Needle up, press your foot up, pull off to the left. And it looks okay on the front and on the back. So we're ready to go. Now, before we get started this time, we're going to line things up just a little bit differently than we did before. And before we were using either the inside of the plastic, the clear plastic, or we were using the inside of this silver toe. This time we need to make our stitching distance about 3/8 inch from the edge. And so we're going to use the inside of this toe right here. So we're looking at this spot right along here. I'm going to lower the presser foot so you can see it a little bit better. So when you're stitching, the edge of your fabric should be running right along the inside of this foot. Not the outside, but the inside of that foot. So, here we go. We're going to be basically stitching a square-shaped U. We're going to start on the right side of the bag as we're facing it. And we want to start near the top of the pocket. We are going to do some back stitching. So a couple of stitches forwards. And don't forget to hang on to your thread so you don't get a thread blob under the back. So a couple stitches forward, back stitch, and then we're going to just stitch along here. I'm stitching a little bit faster so that this takes a little bit less time. But remember, adjust your speed so it's comfortable and make sure that you are not past the middle of the double arrow. Don't forget to stop and take your pins out as you go. I'm coming into this corner, and this corner I need to pivot. And to pivot, I'm going to leave the needle down and make a turn, but I need to make my distance about the same as the distance that I'm using coming down the side. So my best guess is right about there. So right about when this fabric touches that edge there, I think that's about right. And when I lifted it up, actually that's not right, because I'm now at the, if you look at it, I'm at the outside of the presser foot. So I need to do 1 or 2 stitches more before I turn. So 1, 2, and I'm pretty close. I'm not going backwards. I'm pretty close. All right, so I lifted the presser foot, I turned the fabric, and now I'm going across the bottom of the bag. And I'm speeding up a little bit. I'm experienced. I can do this. I don't want you going too fast for your own experience. Keep everything nice and flat. Now, if you notice, I've got this piece kind of hanging up here in front of me, and you really shouldn't have that. You should be able to lay yours out flat. However, I have a camera between me and the sewing machine, and it doesn't want to lay flat. So I have to kind of just control it so it doesn't get in my way. Another pin, I'm going to stop and take it out. And we're getting ready to turn again, and I need to be careful when I turn. Now remember, when I stopped with it at this edge right here, it was too far away. So I'm going to try 1 stitch more than that this time. All right, 1 more. And that's pretty good. This stitching should not show when you put your bag together. It is meant just to hold the bag together temporarily. It's so that we don't end up with quite so many pins when we're putting the whole thing together at the end. It's going to make it a little bit easier for us to do our loops, which are our next step, and attach them. I'm almost up to the top. And remember, when I get to the top, I'm going to hit the back stitch button, and I want to go back about 3 or 4 stitches. And then needle up, presser foot up, pull off to the left, and remember to cut your threads nice and close, because if we don't cut our threads, they will end up hooking on the foot the next step that we make. So I'm grabbing my little snips so I can cut those off close. And my pocket is attached. I should be ready to go on to doing the loops.